We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, and 1410 KERI. Clay, we're syndicated.
I know. We keep going over that.
I know. We're the only syndicated show in Kern County. How about that?
At least with this group of stations.
And our guest by phone is Bruce Herschensohn, one of the good guys, a former senatorial candidate running against Barbara Boxer way back in 1992, if you can believe that.
It's not hard to believe. It's just unfortunate.
It's unfortunate that he's not sitting in that seat right now.
Or anybody else.
Yeah, but I prefer Bruce. Bruce, since you worked in the Nixon administration, I have a question for you. It's one of those questions that keeps on coming up over the years whenever you see something on the Cuban Missile Crisis. How do you think Nixon would have handled the Cuban Missile Crisis as opposed to the way Kennedy handled it?
He has continually said that President Kennedy did exactly the right thing. And I believe that that's true. I think that President Kennedy did do the right thing. I think he handled it well. I think that, I know from President Nixon's statements, both private and public, that he supported President Kennedy in the way that he handled the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Would Nixon have handled it the same way?
I think so. I'm not sure of some of the intricacies of the meetings between Bobby Kennedy and with the embassy of the Soviet Union. I mean, a lot of details go into this that he might have departed in some areas, but by and large, I think he would have supported it.
Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about your book.
Okay, great.
Let's see. I'm having a little bit of a problem here. Okay, there we go. Okay, can you hear me okay, Bruce?
I sure can.
Okay, there we go. Obama's Globe. What motivated you to write this book?
I do not want him in the White House after this election. I tried to get it out prior to the election. Mm-hmm. It is out, and I'm glad that all of the deadlines were met. To be honest with you, that's why I wrote it, and I have had, because I teach over at Pepperdine, I retain all my notes, so it wasn't a matter of doing a great deal of research, because the research had already been done for my class, and I had all of that, and so I put it together, and really what it is a tour of the world in terms of what President Obama has done, mainly to our allies that he's abandoned, and the ones that he hasn't straight abandoned, he has insulted. And as I mentioned, it's a time of war. The first thing is this: he comes into the White House and he gives a timeline for getting out of Iraq, and a timeline then later on in his administration, timeline for getting out of Afghanistan. Let me just mention this: when you go into the military, into the service, first thing that you're told, first day of basic training, if you are ever captured by an enemy, you can only tell them three things: name, rank, and serial number. Now we have a commander-in-chief, not a new recruit, not a private. He's telling the enemy when we're going to leave. If one side leaves and the other side stays, that party that stays is going to win. Wars aren't simply ended. They're either won or they're lost, all of them. An ending, a one side leaving, may have bring about an intermission, but it is not the end. It never is. The side that stays is going to win, and that's the way that it's going to be. Take a look at what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan right now. It is outrageous to do that, and certainly one of those people that President Obama looks as an idol is to FDR. Well, he said on December the 8th, that the morning after December the 7th of 41, he said in that very famous speech to a joint session of the Congress, he said, we're going to achieve victory no matter how long it takes. And no one asked for a timeline. The timeline was victory, period, said by both FDR and by Winston Churchill.
We need some new leadership. We need we need someone like FDR that's going to go in and go victory only.
You bet.
It's like they said one time after a war, you've wakened a sleeping giant. Mm-hmm. And if they would let our troops and our experience and our knowledge and our equipment take action, this could be over.
That's so accurate. And no matter what anyone thinks of FDR, and I certainly am not high at all on his domestic programs, but my God, in terms of a wartime president, he was a great wartime president. He got the whole nation behind him and stayed behind him and didn't ask for a timeline, didn't say, when are we getting out? There were none of those kinds of things that we not only put up with today, but have become a part of the administration itself. And that is what is so bothersome, the kinds of things that he's done to the United Kingdom, a place that we have a special relationship with. Well, we don't seem to have it now. And Israel, another special relationship, we sure don't seem to have it now, with the kinds of policies that he has regarding Iran, where we ignored it. We just ignored it when there was a demonstration of the people against their government, against the Ayatollah Khamenei, and holding up placards in the street, placards that said, "You are Obama!" exclamation point, Obama! exclamation point. You are either with them or you're with us. We don't even give them moral support. And we're allowing right now in Syria tens of thousands to be killed. They were holding up placards saying that help us, or we'll all be killed. Well, they're all being killed.
Incredible. Our guest by phone, former senatorial candidate, Bruce Herschensohn. You know, Bruce, something you mentioned in the book, and it's something that's been quoted several times, where one of the Afghan warlords looked at an American colonel, I think it was, and said, "You have all the watches, we have all the time."
Exactly.
Speaking of timelines,
and that's exactly what they mean.
And it reminded me of a film I had seen about 5 years ago. It was a film of Vietnam generals and American colonels and generals sitting down talking about the war 20 years later. And one of the American colonels looked at his counterpart in Vietnam and said, "You know, we've won all the battles." And the Vietnamese colonel said, "The problem was you guys never realized that wasn't the ultimate goal."
Yeah. The story of Vietnam, I got to tell you, I wrote a book called An American Amnesia on this thing. We won the war in January of 73. We won it to the point that the North Vietnamese, in their memoirs and statements, say they knew they lost. They came to the Paris Peace Accords. They signed it. We signed it. That was it. And if they had aggression, as it said in the Paris Peace Accords, we would supply on a piece-by-piece basis to the South Vietnamese whatever they needed on a piece-by-piece basis of anything that's lost. And so Watergate came along after the Paris Peace Accords. We did get our prisoners back. They thought they lost the war, but when the next election came along, congressional election, Watergate had already taken its course. Tremendous landslide for the Democrats. Ford was in the White House at the time. They kept testing him, and he wasn't going to do anything, and he didn't do anything. Finally, it got to be April of 1975. He made a speech. Boy, do I know these dates by heart because they meant so much. On April the 10th of 75, he gives a speech to a joint session of the Congress saying, "You got to give the supplies that we promised, our signature. We promised, you got to do it, or we're going to have a surrender of Cambodia, and then we're going to have a surrender of South Vietnam." They walked out on him. They gave statements to the press, "Never, we're not going to do this." In fact, not going to keep our word. And that was April the 10th. April the 17th, 1 week later, Cambodia surrenders. By the end of April the 30th, Vietnam surrenders. This is one of the great horrors of U.S. history. You ask people about it now, they don't remember any of this stuff. They don't even remember who was president when Vietnam and Cambodia both surrendered. And that was 2.25. All it took was 2.25 years. And look, last night on the Democrats' convention, they gave praise to Senator Kennedy for ending the war in Vietnam. Holy smoke.
Jeez.
Ending the war in Vietnam Well, look at Vietnam now. It's the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Hanoi is the capital. Hanoi is the capital of what was both North and South Vietnam. There's been a genocide after that surrender in 1975, a genocide of over 2 million in Cambodia, over 1 million boat people leaving Vietnam, South Vietnam, with about half of them still under the South China Sea.
And we're going to see a genocide in Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's almost for sure. I mean, it bothers me so much to see history repeated, and no one even remembers this stuff. Just for the heck of it, I've asked people, who was president when South Vietnam surrendered? They don't know. They'll say Johnson or Nixon. They don't know what happened, and they don't know that we didn't keep our word. We won, not according to me, but according to the North Vietnamese, and they kept on testing, as I mentioned, not going to be repetitive, but they realized they could win this thing by just sticking it out. It took them 2.25 years, but when I say it took them 2.25 years, it took the American people who didn't seem to care.
Bruce, we've got to have you back. We'd love to have you back. Okay,
thanks,
soon.
Of course.
I have a one-word answer question for you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Israel will bomb Iran because of the nuclear capability that Iran has?
Yes.
Okay. I figured. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Yes. I know you're short of time. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Fair enough. I won't go into Iran right now then.
Okay, but
we'll do that at a later time.
We would love to have you back, and I highly, highly recommend this book, Obama's Globe, A President's Abandonment of U.S. Allies Around the World. Bruce, thank you so much for the time. We want to have you back.
Thanks so much. Good to talk to you, Marty.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.